Season 11, Episode 7, Series 11, Episode 7, Kerblam. Thank you, Kat. um, Synopsis. When the 13th Doctor finds a mysterious call for help packaged with a delivery from the galaxy's largest retailer, she and her friends get to work in finding out the cause of the distress. However, is the human 10% of the workforce rebelling against the robots? Or is there a much more complicated plot going on?
Doctor
Yes, so we open on them flinging it around, uh, flinging around the TARDIS, trying to avoid the glowing ball of light, which,
That happens to be a delivery from her 11th self.
yeah, though when he ordered that is an interesting. What part of his timeline did he order that in? Because that's
The part where he was away from the
well, I mean, not so much like
too long.
well, there's funny places where he could have done that, like when he was holding off the invasion for hundreds of years. He's like, you know what? I wouldn't mind a fez. Kerblam?
Although to answer the doctor's question, yes, it still suits her.
That's
Yeah,
because fezzes are cool.
and that's one of the few ways you could get away with bringing the fez back as a reference and it really working. It's like if you do it someplace else, it's like, okay, that's 11's thing. Sort of leave that with 11. Though what you could have done, what would have been funny, is just she sees like in Kerblam's, another. Well, this isn't a way to. You still need the initial opening thing to work, and it's a good opening sort of hook. But what would be funny is when she gets there, to Kerblam, she sees a fez floating by going by on a conveyor belt, and then just walks past it. Claire was wrong. or
Mm-hmm.
I I can walk past a fez. And then turns back and grabs it anyway. It's just like, it's left over. I don't know. It still doesn't work quite well, but it's an interesting hook. So, but also, how did the how did the Kerblam man get in? I mean, from what I understand, I mean, they usually have to find a way around, an excuse for why something could get in the TARDIS. It's like, oh, there was something weird happened. There usually has an excuse for how something could get into the TARDIS, considering it's super.
Or even time vortex can keep a Kerblam man from his delivery.
Yes, these are very tenacious little
Yeah, I
Kerblam
mean,
bots.
it's like if
And
they're
you
the
could understand.
best
Oh, now you're
online
just
retailer in the universe, then they have their ways.
um, but yeah, at that point we get the the packing card and says, "Ooh, help me." And so,
Nobi, you're my only hope.
yeah, which I mean, the doctor, is never, you know, never run into a thing where it wasn't important. It's like, okay, this is obviously important because otherwise it wouldn't happen to me because yeah. And think about the interesting thought about this is the doctor's timeline is a bit wibbly wobbly. So what if the Fez had arrived? I don't know, to different doctors. Like it had arrived early. I know that's a weird
Like
concept with a time
earlier
traveler.
than he even ordered it.
Yeah, it could arrive
Or
before he ordered it.
like a different doctor.
Yeah, like if the fourth
You know the
Doctor just gets
Fez,
a
you know
Fez
the
and
Fez made an appearance with the seventh Doctor.
Hmm?
Ace tried it on, and the Doctor yelled at her.
Don't wear a Fez.
It was more stop putting random things on, stop putting weird things on your head. But yeah,
Oh, and yeah, 7. Okay, give it a few
Something that the doctor eventually
regenerations.
forgot.
You'll change your mind on that because 11 couldn't stop putting weird things on his head.
right.
I wear Stetsons now. Stetsons are cool. It's like, come on.
I would love to see Ace meet up with him. It's like, oh, so you can wear it.
Yeah, Ace ran into 11. It's like, now you told me. I know what I told you, but that was when I was him. Now I'm me. Wear a fez as much as you like, because fezzes are cool. And bow ties. Bow ties are cool. Stetsons are cool, but my wife won't let me wear one. That has to be one of the funniest bits. Just
It is kind of funny though because she used to call him Professor instead of Doctor,
ah,
and his wife actually is a professor.
yeah. Well, and I just I don't know why that tickles me so much when I see when I watch that clip of River shooting the Stetson off his head.
Yes.
It's like you're okay with the Fez. I don't think she much cared for the Fez either, but she tolerated the Fez. She did not tolerate the Stetson. She didn't. She tolerated the bow tie. She tolerated the Fez. She's not going to tolerate the Stetson. Anyway, let's see. So, they go to the Kerblam moon, as it were, and the Doctor actually does something clever, and it's like, oh yes, I'm going to, while I'm distracting you with the psychic paper, I'm going to add us to the list with my Sonic. It's like, okay, it's like the writing was a bit. When Chibnall's not involved, the writing gets a little better. um,
Hey, Chibnall brought back Unit. He's the one who wrote Power of Three.
and that's good, but like so far with 13, the less he's involved, the better it gets. um,
Although
for the most part.
still the glaring obvious thing of, oh yeah, people power type thing. That has been basically the same theme of every episode.
But let's see. Let's see. So there's a assignment scanner, which that's interesting.
Two hearts. Oh yeah, the
A gift to the first lady.
first lady gave it to me. Great medical plan.
Yeah, and that is actually a thing that's done sometimes with a weak heart. I think some people they've been given an extra, they stitched another heart into it. I think I remember hearing about that. But yeah, and so they're like, oh no, Graham, you're a janitor.
Well, to be fair, the doctor was supposed to be the janitor.
Yeah. Well, no, wasn't it? He was given the job of janitor. Or no, wait. Yeah, okay, maybe it was. Oh, sorry, I got that flipped. Um,
He was given the job of janitor of maintenance, and he was given the job with Ryan, but she switched because she wanted to be down there.
hmm. Anyway, but yeah, so she does all that. Hmm. So it's like what was it? 90. It was 90% robotic workforce, 10% humans.
Yep.
Let's see. Mm-hmm. Uh, let's see. Then we get to the packing thing with Ryan and the doctor. They're doing. They do. And that's discuss a little bit. Um, and we find out that there's a weird no presence thing. I I don't know what that it's like. This is presents are such a huge deal in this society. I guess because the work is so scarce. But
Well, you knew she was dead as soon as she started becoming
well,
like
well yeah, it's like oh, you've got a heartwarming story. you
you're
know,
dead.
it's like yeah. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but a lot of times that occasionally, if they're enough of a main character, they survive anyway. But like if you're just sort of there for the episode and you're a disposable character, you
Just
might
like
be disposed with.
just like the dad. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, my daughter, I'm saving up for her to go to school and have a better life than me. It's like, bye, you dead.
yeah, and it's nice having is it, Lee Mack, I think's his name. He's yeah, Lee Mack. Uh, he's known for he's got a few shows, got a couple shows going. Would I Lie to You, and I think Not Going Out. But he's a northern comic, so that's kind of nice to throw that extra bit of northern in there. Because
Well,
lots
lots
of
of fun.
planets have a north. We didn't even need to ask why he had a northern accent. Lots of planets have a north. Um, I really should have rewatched this. Uh,
That's the one I did get to rewatch.
ah. Shoot. Okay. Uh, so Yaz goes around with Dan to pull orders. She gets called to the place where a lot of people are just disappearing. You know, and it's like, no, you you continue down here. I'll take that one. And at that point, you absolutely knew, oh, he's dead. He's so dead.
It's like nobody comes back from the 009s.
Yeah, and it's like, oh yeah, you're gone. And then we start to see the power drains hit. they start to red herring the boss back at the like the boss comes down to the packing area, and they red herring the him as the villain. Uh, right there, it's like he's very kind of curt and not very nice to her, and the to the Kira Arlo,
Mhm.
and like that's setting up that, oh, he's the villain. Like they, I mean, if you're not thinking too hard about it, it's like, oh, well, that's obviously the villain, you know. And then which it's a nice enough twist on the thing, because it's always the the big bad's always like, oh, he's the corporate businessman who doesn't care about his workers. It's like, you know,
This season.
what? But what else is? Which is it's interesting that it, the I guess kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but to the sort of conclusion of this episode, it's it's interesting that in fact he kind of, he loses the janitor, who turns out to be the the uh, the villain of this. He loses the woman he's sort of fallen for, despite wanting to destroy Kerblam, or at least get what he wants out of it, um, and um, get better working, get better working conditions, uh, get more people in the workforce and less robots. And it's like the terrorist actually got what he wanted, basically. I mean, he didn't explode anything, but except the Kerblam place itself. But like in the end, he got them to do what he wanted, which is an interesting message to send out there. You're not getting what you want? Use terrorism. But let's see. Going back to where we were. Yaz almost gets taken out, but manages to escape. Graham meets Charlie. Mm-hmm. We find out he likes uh, Kira. Charlie likes Kira, the janitor. They go to investigate the main office of the. This is this review is going a little slowly and clumsily, but sort of scanning it, scanning the wiki page, just sort of make sure I don't miss anything. So they break into the office. They look up stuff. They find at some point they find let's see, they find the list in the filing cabinet, which they hid
The list in the filing cabinet of all the
of all the people who have disappeared, which makes you wonder whether it's like
with their IDs crossed out.
yeah, it's like, why is this stored in paper?
It kind of looked like a hit list, honestly.
Yeah, and that was part of the whole, um, you know, red herring. We need to string this along like he and Judy are, up to no good. Wait. Okay, no, I'm stringing. Yeah. So they're on the full thought that they're on the full thought that he's got something to do with it since he's hiding it from the main thing. Power goes out completely. A delivery bot attacks Charlie, which gets disabled, and at this point, this is actually a nice bit of misdirection here because we find out later why the robot is like it's trying to defend the system and trying to stop the one that's hurting the Kerblam robot system. It's trying to stop him because he's messing with it. Meanwhile, it looks like it's just attacking people who are nosing into the boss man's hit list. So let's see. They go to find the base code for the system in order to figure out what's causing, what the malicious upgrades are. And go down and pick up, 1.0, the original delivery bot. And meanwhile, Kira's been pulled aside by the robots. And taken down to a place where humans aren't supposed to go. Ryan, I think Ryan, Charlie, and Yaz all, was it Yaz? All jump down to down the conveyors, which we do get reminded again about his Ryan's, was it dyspraxia? It's like dyspraxia. Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, maybe if you haven't seen any other episodes, and to make it more standalone, I suppose that it feels a little forced in there, but I suppose it works if you're just trying to make sure, okay, if you haven't, it feels like it's a little overdone at this point because we've been reminded about it so many times, but but I suppose if you had missed all the other episodes or this was the only episode you were watching this season, it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make as much sense without it. So it's a little clunky, but it makes enough sense that it's like, okay, whatever. That's one of those things. Season has a few like it'll have like a normal episode, but then like there'll be this one or two little things that are just sort of ham-fisted in, and it's like, okay, whatever. Um, um, so they get all the way down there through, adventure ho, through the conveyor belts and getting sprayed with disinfectant and whatnot, and tried to be sprayed with weapons, and it doesn't, luckily doesn't work, but so they get down there, they get down to see Kira, and
Just
just
as
just as
we
she's
arrive, a present is teleported. Oh, a present! I haven't had one of those. I've only had one ever.
yeah
Yay! Bubble wrap.
yeah, and it's like pop, boom, okay.
Uh,
Oh, oh wow, yeah, it's which we see that as they were trying to get back at Charlie, trying to get him,
to
and
see.
yeah, it's like,
Mhm.
hey, one there then in their calculations, okay, well, if we get her, we can get him to stop, and then we can save a bunch of lives on the back end, and that's why we're fighting, why we're doing this. It's like, yes, this is an evil act, but justify it in the means that maybe this will get him to stop, maybe this will get people to understand what's going on, and then that one person's death can save all these other ones because
The need
they don't.
way the need of the few.
Yeah, when it's a robot, and, it doesn't have really emotional ties to anyone. It just says, all right, number of humans, eh, you know, and so uh, and at this point, Ryan figures out, hey, Charlie knew that would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's there's your first actual hint. Though they do kind of throw around a janitor could get anywhere they liked without anybody batting an eye. They throw that around a lot in the beginning. Like, oh yeah, janitor. They throw that in every once in a while. Well, janitor could get around anywhere he wants. Um. Uh.
Like with how they're able to access the vaults and steal the blueprints in the head.
Yeah. So we find out from Twirly after the doc messes with Twirly for a bit. It tells her that the help me was actually from, you know, Kerblam
Kerblam.
the itself, going help stop this. Though how it knows the doctor more than as a recipient of packages is unknown, but it sent it. Uh, so they go down to they eventually let's see, they get down there, down to the lobby, and then Slade pops up, the boss man pops up with a gun, and they've hacked one of the Kerblam man's teleports to teleport them down to to where they need to go, because there's not really an easy way to get down there. They'd have to go by the conveyor belts like Yaz and Ryan and Charlie. Doctor stops him with Venusian Aikido from the third Doctor. They explains why he kept analog records, because he didn't know what was being the problem. Was it a human? Was it the system? If he puts the information in the system will realize it's onto it. You know, you know, and Judy might have access to the same sort of things and so keeping it in an analog place where he can control it for the most part, though Dr. Sonicked it pretty easily. Um, uh, um, so they find after finding out that basically everyone that's disappeared is a smoking crater at this point.
I thought they were sludge.
Sludge, but just sort of a pit of goo.
Hey, maybe that's what the ooze that the Autons were going to use looked like.
So they the Kerblam men, the Kerblam bots are all standing at attention, holding something, and they're all being held up, and the power drains have been getting ready for one big mass teleport all at once for a gigantic terrorist attack with the bubble packaging. um, let's see. At this point, we find out, it is revealed. Charlie, they figure it out. Charlie's the terrorist. The people who went missing were because of him. Perfecting the explosive bubble wrap. Though, why he needed, flesh and blood humans to do that, and he couldn't just. Oh, is that big enough? Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose whatever. That seems like that would get you caught quicker. But yeah. And especially,
what do you expect? He's a terrorist.
well, and he wanted, he wanted to get, I guess it's justify the means, but you killing a bunch of people to help humans, but I guess terrorism again doesn't care. Ends justify the means. So his entire motive was to get people to rebel against just 10% of the populace getting jobs by placing the blame for mass murder on the Kerblam AI, making people mistrust AI, which his whole point was to get more humans in the workforce and less robots. And so, in the end, he basically gets what he wants. We covered that. Yeah, they in order to diffuse the situation, the Doctor has them change the delivery location to themselves and pop the Kerblam robots to basically self-detonate and wipe themselves out before they can be teleported out and do any real damage to humans. Um, so at the end of the day, Judy and Slade give the workers 2 weeks paid vacation and free shuttle ride back to Kondoka. They're going to reorganize the workforce to be less reliant on robots, more on humans. She offers them to stay, but the Doctor says they are strictly freelance. Besides, you know, she could be a curator. She's more of a curator. She could be a great curator. And they go to return the necklace to Dan's daughter.
And then at the very end,
It's like
Ram wants to pop the bubble wrap anyway. It's like,
yeah. Oh,
bubble wrap. Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, it was an entertaining story. Most, you know, it's just Ryan gets some good stuff. Graham gets some good stuff. The Doctor gets some good stuff. Yaz, for the most part, doesn't get a lot. She gets a few moments with Dan, Lee Mack's character, but for the most part, she just seems like she's just kind of along for the ride. And so it seems to me, I don't know, like, for most of this season, it seems like Yaz is just sort of there. You know, she feels like, you know, if this had just, if you'd started the whole thing over and Yaz wasn't a part of this series, it wouldn't have significantly changed it. You wouldn't have to change a lot to
It's been about 20 years or so since they've had 3 companions at a time.
Yeah. They don't know how to write for 3 companions. They can have 2.
Yeah.
They can do Amy and Rory. Amy and Rory worked. But, you know, one is done a lot. You know, everybody from Rose to Bill were all, you know, there's a lot of singles. But
Bill wasn't always a single companion.
Oh yeah, because he had Nardal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about Nardal. But yeah, but
how could you forget Nardal and his awesome glass hair?
Glass
okay.
hair? That sounds awesome.
Hair.
but yeah, but a lot of the times there's a lot of Bill and well, there's a lot of most of the companions have been for the most part solo companions. It's like you have Rose and Donna, and I mean you'd have Jack pop in every once in a while, but and you know Martha, but for the most part they were one at a time.
Person companion that was any continuous was the 5th Doctor with Nyssa, Tegan, and Trelaw. And that was in the 80s.
And they canceled the series shortly thereafter, so
Not shortly thereafter. There were 2 more Doctors.
Oh wait, I thought you said 7th Doctor.
No, 5th Doctor.
Okay, sorry. Misheard it.
No, the 6th and 7th Doctor were purely solo companions.
Yeah.
Perry for the 5th leading into the 6th, and the 6th up until towards the end of the 7th, and then the 7th Doctor had only Melanie Bush and then only Ace.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it just keep going back to it, but it does feel like she's the third wheel. It's like Yes, two can work because I think they wrote two good characters in Graham and Ryan because they're lovely. I mean, they're great.
I think they're having difficulty
But
figuring out a good interaction between all three of them because you can tell that they're trying to ship Ryan and Yaz, and even Graham mentioned when they were in the in the break room area where it's like, hey, those two kind of remind me of you two when you were younger, and by younger I mean a couple weeks ago.
yeah, it doesn't really
But
work for me. But yeah,
they
I
haven't
agree
been,
that they can't juggle all three balls at once. They
and
can get two working, but they can't get
they had
three.
a moment in Rosa where they were talking and behind the garbage can and stuff like that, but they can't balance that grandfather grandson relationship and the ship they're trying to build with Yaz. So she ends up just being there
Yeah,
as, oh, I'm gonna do something with her, but I really like this
this is
you
a
know
far
the
more interesting relationship to discuss. This is far
exact
deeper and has far more interesting implications.
exactly.
And so it's like, eh, we'll just
But I think hopefully they're in the next season they'll bring more of that out because they're trying with Yaz, but they don't know how to do it well.
yeah. I think
Even with the classic Who, when they had three companions, it tended to not often balance very well.
yeah.
There were certain episodes where one companion was more prominent and then the other companions were just there, or two companions were prominent and the other companion was there. And trying to build those different relationships all at once is what's distracting you from building the character that herself.
Yeah.
Whereas with a lot of the classics, one or two would leave at a time and you would still have the original, so you would have a little overlap where you have character building
And
while
so
building interactions. But they didn't do that with this.
yeah, it's anyway. But it was um, an interesting episode. It had some fun moments. Um,
Especially since Madrock and I both work stock.
nah.
He works in a warehouse and I just unwrap the stuff.
um, anything anything else we can think of with Kerblam?
No.
All right, I think we basically exhausted Kerblam.